All right, so today I want to talk about the importance of knowing your numbers in your real estate business. One of the most frustrating parts about having a real estate agent business is that it's a very unpredictable lifestyle and it's a very unpredictable way of running a company. And so, what you want to do is try to make your business as repeatable and scalable as possible. And the number one thing in order to make your business as repeatable possible is to know your numbers. And if you know your numbers, then you can know exactly which inputs and activity will result in you in ultimately making the amount of money that you want to make. So let's get started. So first, why should you know your numbers? Number one is to create a predictable business. You want your business to have a recurring revenue model. Now, of course, when each individual sale equals the revenue that we're going to make, it's very challenging to have a predictable recurring revenue model. So what we want to do is have the same exact inputs every single day, week, and month in order to have predictable results. And we'll get into how exactly we can determine that for different lead pillars. Next is a focus on lead measures and activities. So you never want to have this focus on lag measures. So a lead measure is the activity that goes into it, and then the lag measure is what comes out. If you focus on lag measures, you're going to be looking at how many homes you sold or how much money you made. And if you're looking at lead measures, you're going to look at how many calls you made, how many doors you knocked on, how many people attended each open house, things like that. And so if you're focusing on your lead measures, then you're going to have intern and dramatically improved clarity because it's going to be very clear to you what you need to do each and every day in order to get those results you want. And that's going to lead to you having less stress because you're going to know how much money you can make. Then you're going to be able to plan your financial habits for your personal life around what you're going to expect in your business. So how do we do this? So first, you want to figure out how much money you want to make. And from how much money you want to make, you're going to also determine how many houses that you need to sell. And then from this, you're also going to determine what your average price point is. You're going to need to know what your average commission is, and then what your average expense ratio is. How do we calculate this? What we really want to focus on is the most predictable thing that we have in our business, and that is the number of houses that we're going to sell in a given year. We have very little control over how much the value of those homes are going to be because ultimately those are just the type of clients that we're going to work with. Now, there are things that we can do to lever up our business on focusing on getting higher price points. That's something that I talk about in another video as well. So if you're interested in raising your average price point, definitely check out that video to see how you can do this. Since we're focusing on the number of houses for this video, we want to first focus on what is our desired net income. So let's say if we're going to have in this example, we want to have a desired net income of $100,000. First, we need to divide that $100,000 by our expense ratio in our business. So when we're looking at our expense ratios, we first need to look at what is our gross margin. And in order to get our gross margin, if you have a team, there's a little bit more of a complicated structure for calculating that. But if you're a solo agent like most of you are, then it's very simple. All you need to factor in is what your current split is your company. So if you're at a traditional brokerage like Sotheby's, Coldwell Banker, one of these companies, you likely are on like an 80-20 split. And so it's very easy to figure out what your gross margin is. Now, if you transition to one brokerage that has a cap amount that you pay into the brokerage each year, then you can predict exactly what that amount is going to be rather than having it be a variable cost. It's now going to be a fixed cost. So for this example, I'm going to say that we're on an 80-20 split. And then we also have expenses in our business around people, marketing, and overhead. I'm going to say we have an 80-20 split. So we have an 80% gross margin. And then from there, from that 80% gross margin, we're spending 13% of our income on expenses in marketing, overhead, and people that help us like commission, for example, transaction coordinators. So we're going to take that 100,000 then and divide it by 0.67. And so now we have a desired income, gross income of $149,253. And then now we need to divide our average commission. And so let's say on average, we take 2.35%. That's factoring in giving seller credits, buyer credits, and then also making offers on homes that have the dreaded 2% commission. And then last, we want to divide that by our average price point. So for this example, let's say we have an average price point of 1.2 million. So once we factor all these things in, we find out that we need to sell 5.29 houses in order to have a desired net income of $100,000 this year. So once we have that figure, it's really important for us to focus in on now. We know we need to sell 5.29 houses. So if we want to have a desired income of over 100,000, we need to round it up to 6. So we now know we need to have 6 houses sold for this year. So now when we look at how many houses we want to sell, we have to then look at our lead pillars because we want to get these things down to the most micronutrient of what it is that takes the activity for you to get the results that you want. So now that we're focusing on our lead pillars, we want to focus on each individual lead pillar and the activity that needs to get a transaction from each. So first, for open house lead pillar, we want to look at how many visitors does it take us to get an appointment. So let's say I'm pretty good at open houses. For every 12 people that come in, I get an appointment. So first, I take 1 divided by 12, and that's going to give me my percentage of visitors to get an appointment. So I have an 8.3% ratio of closing for an appointment. Now, I'm going to say most of the time people show up to my appointments, and I'm going to say 90% of the time they show up because I have a very good lead follow up system. I book a calendar invite to them, and then I text them on the time of booking the appointment and on the day of to make sure they're going to show up. And so now I need to multiply this new number by how often do my appointments commit to working with me for my open houses. And so I'm really good at my buyer consults. So I'm going to say 80% of the time they commit to working with me. And then now I need to multiply this by what percentage of these people that commit to work with me actually turn into transactions. So we're in this place now where we have very low inventory. So we get buyers who are committed to working with us, and then they eventually get priced out of the market. So let's say 2 out of every 3 actually end up transacting. So I'm going to multiply now by 0.67. So now I have my final figure of 4%. So now how this works is for every single visitor that comes into my open house, I turn them into a transaction 4% of the time. So that means I need 25 visitors in order to turn into a transaction. Okay, next, if I'm looking at Zillow, I'm going to look at how many live connects does it take in order for me to get an appointment. So let's say for every 3 live connections I take, I get 2 appointments. So that means I have a 67% appointment ratio on live connects. Now, these are Zillow leads, and they're very slippery leads. And even though I'm very good at follow up, they only show up 70% of the time. So I'm going to multiply that 67% by 70%. And then after I meet them as the property, they commit to working with me 50% of the time. So now I'm down to a 23.5% close ratio. And then from there, similar to my open houses, even though the buyers are committing to work with me, with this landscape that we're in with low inventory, rising rates, rising prices, I'm going to say they transact another 67% of the time. So 2 out of every 3. So now I have a close ratio of 15.7%. So in order to get to how many live connects I need for a transaction, I'm going to divide 100 by 15.7. And I'm going to get, it takes me 6.3 or 6.4 to 1 transaction. Okay, continuing on with door knocking. I first need to figure out and track how many open doors does it take for me to get an appointment. So for this, I'm going to say for every time 80 people open the door, I get 1 appointment. So I now have a 0.0125% close ratio for appointments. And then these are sellers and these are high quality leads since I've had a face-to-face conversation with them already. And I'm going to be coming back to their home for this appointment. So I'm going to say they show up to these appointments now 90% of the time. And then after I should meet with them, they commit to working with me 75% of the time. And then from there, again, with the landscape of the current real estate market, is when we have a listing, they close 90% of the time. So I'm going to now multiply this by 90%. And so now I have my figure of 0.75% of the time they transact with me. So if I divide this by 100, I find out for every 133 doors I knock on, I get 1 transaction. And last is expired listings. If you've ever called on expired listings with me, you know that I'm very good at them. For every 5 people that I get to answer the phone, I book an appointment. So I have a 20% appointment set ratio on expired listings. And then these appointments are honestly a little bit more slippery. I do get no showed on them 50% of the time. So if I'm going to times that by 0.5. And then how often do they commit to work with me? They commit to working with me 90% of the time when I actually meet with them in person. And then those people transact another 90% of the time because of, again, this landscape that we're in. So now I have an 8.1% for my transactions. So again, I'm going to divide that by 100 and I get, and for every 12.3 people I get on the phone from expired listings, I get 1 transaction. So what should I probably do more of? I should probably do more of expired listing calls and door knocking and open houses because these are great ratios. So now I know in order to sell my 6 homes this year, what activities I need to do for each. So if I want to get 2 deals from open houses, I need to make sure that I have 50 visitors to get a transaction. If I want to get 1 from Zillow, I need to make sure that I only have 6.4 live connections. If I want to get a transaction from door knocking, I know that I have to knock on 133 doors. And if I want to get a listing from an expired listing, I know I need to, and if I want to get a transaction from expired listings, I know that it's going to take 12.3 live calls in order for me to get a transaction. So now I can go in and put my activity into daily, weekly, and monthly forecasts so that I know each and every day, week, and month what I need to do in order to be successful and reach my goals within my business.